But although I've highlighted some of the problems there, what I would say at this point very strongly is that in my view, plastics as materials are not actually the source of the problem. They're not the source of the problem. They may lead to it. Plastics, in my view, bring immense societal benefit that have the potential to reduce our footprint on the planet. They're lightweight, highly durable, versatile, and inexpensive materials, bringing benefits anything from lightweighting in a car or an aeroplane that will reduce fuel emissions, applications in hospitals, a solar panel on a bus shelter here, to applications in packaging that will help to extend the shelf life for food and drink, reducing food wastage. It's these incredible benefits that have seen exponential increase in production. And I think there's a difference there in the challenge of plastic litter from many of the other challenges that we've been talking about here at this Greening the Economy meeting at the OECD. We heard about extracting fish this morning, and sure, we want to avoid fishing in that area that Chris Costello talked about, that red area. But it's clear there's a link between the thing we want and the damage to the environment. In short, the more fish we take out, the less there are in the oceans. Similarly, if we all want to live by the coastline and we want to develop natural habitats in the way that we see on the right, that's going to directly take away natural habitat. With most of the challenges we face today, there's a direct link between the thing us humans want, the fish or the life by the coast, and the damage to the environment. That is not the case with plastics. You think about the benefits I highlighted a few moments ago, those benefits are almost entirely decoupled from this emission of plastic to the environment. And it's important to recognize that because it very clearly means that it's possible to have those benefits without this emission of litter to the environment. It's about how we deal with plastics, not whether we deal with them. The benefits that I've described have seen this exponential increase in plastic production, shooting off the scale from 5 million tonnes of production in the 1950s to over 300 million tonnes today. But if we look at the breakdown of that production by category of usage, then we start to scratch at the surface of the problem. We realize that these highly durable materials, approaching 40% of all of the 300 million tonnes of plastic we're producing, is going into single-use applications, into applications of packaging. Very short life in service, very long life as waste. And there we're starting to get closer to the source of the environmental problem. This is the center pages of Time Life magazine from the 1950s, and it's extolling the virtues of a throwaway, disposable, a convenience-driven society, that we can create this waste without a regard for its accumulation in the long term in the environment. And in short, we've had more or less 60 years of research and development, training towards an increasing throwaway society, training and development of products, and training of citizens' behavior to regard this stuff at the end of its life as having no value, as readily thrown away. And so why should we be so surprised when some of that throwaway results in an emission to the environment? That's largely how we've been brought up. In terms of things that maybe the OEC could do, I think one of the things that I hear from industry and from policy and from NGOs is actually an alignment of thinking. I don't hear deniers of the problem. Most people are agreed there is an issue here. You could argue about the relative magnitude of effects, but there's an issue. We want to see less litter in the oceans. Industry are keen to move towards that, to help to raise the benefits but minimize these impacts. But what they want, what they call out for, is a level playing field, something that will be fair across the industry. That if the companies of Europe agree on some harmonization and some standardization, that they won't then be challenged by imports that don't meet those standards. Some of the standards relate to things like biodegradability, where we have international standards that don't relate to anything to do with degradation in the environment. Others relate, I would argue, to standards relating to what the solutions are. And we're starting to see industry very much stepping up to the plate here in terms of things that they might do. At the bottom we see a statement from a major multinational, and Ellen MacArthur Foundation have done a lot to bring industry to the table here. But going forward, we need to work out how we encourage industry to prioritize. This statement here suggests that by 2025, they're going to be using reusable, recyclable, or compostable material as a pledge. That gives an awful lot of scope. Those things are not all equivalents. What we need to see is a hierarchy, and possibly the OECD could bring to us some clarity on what that hierarchy might look like and how it might vary between different applications and between nations.
Basically, we recycle different types of materials. We recycle a lot of discarded fishing nets, PET plastic bottles, used tires, post-consumer coffee, post-industrial and post-consumer cotton, and the same with wool. We have developed over 200 fabrics in the last 3 years, most of them between 80 to 100% recycled content, to create all different types of fabrics. All you see there, it's 100% recycled fabrics from plastic bottles. Okay. Used tires. This is a project we started in Spain. I don't know if any of you have seen a tire, but it's quite complicated when you see it inside. It's full of metals and textiles, and we did this huge project with Signus, which is a company which has to recycle all the used tires in Spain. It's received over 6 innovation prizes because it looks like an easy product, but it's not. It was a nearly 2-year R&D program where we cleaned those wheels, we took everything out, and everything is made by heat. There's no conglomerates, no glues, no nothing. Coffee. Basically, we have an agreement with this big cafeteria group in Taiwan. We collect the leftovers of the coffee every morning, which is the humid compound, which we dry out, convert into powder, and mix with plastic polymers. Basically, the good thing about coffee is that it has natural properties. You don't have to give the fabrics through chemicals those properties as odor control, fast drying, UV protection, etc. All those fabrics are made from coffee. Fishing nets. Basically, we use only the nylon 6.6 nets, which is the best quality nylon you can get in the world. Basically, for you to get an idea, from petrol to one of those fabrics, it would be 17 chemical steps. From an old fishing net to that fabric, it's 7 chemical steps. Where are the most trolling boats in Spain? And it was in the East Coast. So we contacted the fishermen of the East Coast of Valencia, Alicante, Castellón, and we started a trial project with them so that they let us put like a little container in the boats. We started with 160 boats and 11 ports where we put a big container. The fishermen would take down every day what they collect in the nets, which is around 2 to 3 kilos per boat per day. We collected every 10 days. We separated because it's full of aluminum, glass, a Nike shoe, you have a lot of stuff. So everything is taken to the recycling facility except the PET bottles, which we stock and we convert into pellet, yarn, fabric, and product, all in Spain, because EcoAlf never moves the waste around. So if we are recycling the used tires in Spain, we make the flip-flop in Spain. We recycle the cotton in Portugal, we'll make till the final product. We recycle the nets in Korea, we'll make to the final product in Korea. Okay, this project, well, I can't go back. Oh, yes, I can go backwards. Okay, this project started in those 11 ports, and now we are in, well, now we're in 35 ports, over 2,500 fishermen involved. And by the end of the, well, I think first quarter of 2018, we will have all that part you see there in Spain, which will be over 3,000 fishermen involved, and in between 250 to 300 tons of waste taken out of the ocean and converted into yarn. Okay. Now we're starting another trial test because I think this is amazing, but we're not going to clean the ocean. So we said, okay, what we have to start working is avoiding that plastic getting into the ocean. And unfortunately, most of that plastic is getting through the rivers. You can talk with the fishermen every time it rains a lot, all that waste which is in the rivers is taking out. So we are starting 2 trial tests now in the bottom of, at the south of Spain, in Granada, to see if we can stop that waste from getting into the ocean. It's good we take out the waste which is in the ocean out, because if not, it will convert into microplastics, which we know the problem, but it would be even better if we try to avoid it getting in the first place. No? And then we are working in Thailand. We were contacted by the government of Thailand to help them replicate the project in Thailand. So we're working there in 4 areas, in Rayan, in Koh Tao, Samui, and Phuket, where we're only not working with the fishermen, but also with the diving community and the beach cleaning association.
I think there's a UNEP report which estimates the overall financial damage caused by marine litter to something like 8 billion euros. So it was obvious that something had to be done, and the European Union is doing 2 things in 2 different dimensions: one inside the EU and one outside the EU, based on its international responsibilities. So let me tell you 4 things, just 4 examples, what the EU is doing inside the EU. One is, of course, that we have I would say, one of the highest levels of environmental protection legislation in place in the world. The Marine Strategy Framework Directive, we have an obligation for member states to reach what is called a good environmental status of their seas by 2020, and there are various ways to measure that. One thing which we will be looking at is the marine litter. There are no healthy seas, there's no good environmental status if the properties or the quantities of marine litter are actually harming the coastal or marine waters. Two, we have a blue growth policy which we are devising together with stakeholders, business community, the NGOs, to drive forward sustainable blue growth. Maritime spatial planning was mentioned before. Major asset in terms of improving legal certainty, but also in reducing the overall environmental harm of business. Third big category is research, marine research, going into understanding better the sources of marine pollution and cleaning them up, but also other areas. Overall, only this year, the EU is spending 250 million euros in investing in marine research. And then fourth is, I think what is the most relevant for the topic today, this panel, is the circular economy package, circular economy policy, which is all about reducing waste, including waste that reaches the oceans. And how to do that, it is through greater recycling and greater reuse.
Initiatives on plastics have existed, but not always at scale for real system change. So that's how the New Plastics Economy Initiative was launched in 2016. And we have conveyed a group of over 40 businesses, major businesses, governments, cities, to all collaborate. So you can see here on this slide that it's really a cross-value chain collaboration. The initiative is articulated around 5 building blocks. The first one is dialogue mechanism to make sure that there's collaboration and exchange. The second, the Global Plastics Protocol, which is being elaborated at the moment, is to make sure that we're on the same page, speaking the same language and avoiding fragmentation of systems. The third is on innovation, to make sure that we really have change, a systemic change in all sectors. Then we continue to build evidence-based, build knowledge on plastics. And the fifth one is to make sure that we engage everyone, including designers, policymakers, which play a big role.
This discussion has really been useful in, I think, highlighting, the complexity of the issue, in highlighting, the multiple parallel approaches and initiatives that will be needed. Private sector, governments, NGOs, working through the value chain all the way up to the design stage, setting the economic incentives so that recycling can take place and is actually something that is a profitable business model.